Hi, and welcome to the Unhinged History Podcast, the podcast where two unhinged, compulsive maniacs are going to binge read history memes like you wouldn't believe. We're going to uncover the backstory. We are going to separate the fact from the fiction, and then we are going to troll our co host in your presence as we regale them with the stories that they have not learned themselves. I am host one. I am Theresa, and that is.
I'm Angie. I'm host number two, and I just really love the art of trolling the other host
Mhm.
whilst in the middle of the notes. She provides more fact, I provide more fiction. Here we are.
Look, we have a set schedule, we have a set itinerary. Our resumes are already built out as such. We don't
Yeah,
plan on
we're
changing.
balanced. Here we
Are
are.
we
You're
balanced?
the
Oh, we
I
balance
mean at
each
least
other
yeah,
because
that's
my
that's what I
therapist has
mean.
notes.
Yeah, no, I don't mean like that. No, good luck with us, okay? Like your therapist goes to therapy because she's your therapist, and that means you're doing your job right.
Hmm. Facts. And honestly, the fact that there is a song I sent my therapist to therapy cracks me up so much. Have I sent that
As it
song to you?
should. Yes, you just totally revived me of it. I loved that song. It made me laugh so hard.
It was Chef's Kiss, no notes.
Like, I want to know because, like, I don't know how HIPAA violations work, but in this case, when you're going to therapy because you're a therapist, it does it count?
Well, I think you have to like pull back enough of the information, right? You can just say, I have a
That would
patient,
make sense.
hashtag problematic, and problematic has a problem with their parent. So problematic parent. And then we have problematic stepdaughter. Like, you know what? I brought a handout. Let's look at the family tree.
I brought pictures. I brought a slideshow. I made a PowerPoint,
Hmm.
and everybody's face is blurred out. Yeah, I'm here for it. Yeah. So with that said, hopefully we don't send you to therapy this week, or maybe we do. Live your
I
best life.
mean,
We're not here to tell you how
honestly,
to do
look,
it.
we're not going to yuck your yum. Maybe you appreciate figuring out new triggers. That's what we're here for.
We just want to help you know you well. You know?
And honestly, your
Uh,
therapist is trying to really afford that renovation. They want a new kitchen.
they do, and the bathroom is really lacking right now. So we are working in tandem with your therapy department
Department.
and getting
Wow,
a
that
kickback.
upgrade, that
Yeah.
escalated. You now
Yeah.
have an entire wing of therapists. It's a lot of legal pads.
Well, you got to have the one that's just for speaking and the one that's for prescribing. So, I
No,
mean, you
that's a
get more, but yeah, that's a
psychiatrist.
department.
You have a
Yeah, well, you get more
psychiatrist,
than
and then you
one.
have the therapist.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, it's a department.
A department
It's
of two.
all okay, anyway, um my sources are history.com, Brown University,
Oh,
the wow, I cannot believe I just spaced the name. I didn't include the name of this one. Give me just a second to pull that up because I did not include it in my notes. So, the Library of Congress. Yeah, that would be it.
that would do it.
The Library of Congress, the World History Encyclopedia, Smithsonian Magazine, um, another World Encyclopedia, but it is the Mythic Encyclopedia of the World, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh.
And way too many YouTube videos to list because I had a lot of questions, and I'm going to be honest, I still have most of the same questions, but I think it's meant to be that way. Um, so for all that to say, I had another story picked out for this week, but then it hit me that I really wanted to bring this topic to the table. I confirmed with the powers that be that it was a safe topic to cover because Theresa is not covering it for the month of October.
And can we just shout out the most loyal man in my life? The the man who guards my secrets, who knows the darkness in my heart. And
My
is
husband. Yeah, he just he's the guy. You got a secret to tell, he will own it and it's his and he won't share it, but he will gloat about it. Uh so so there you go. He informed me my topic was good, but I'm going to start with a disclaimer. I'm going to describe part of a festival, but this festival is part of a bigger spirituality, and as such, it's nuanced. It has many ideas and many different beliefs around it, and I hope to present it in a way that's both respectful and full of curiosity because I would want someone to do that for my own spirituality and my beliefs. So my hope is that that's how I come across. So without further ado, I bring you the history of the Gaelic festival that marks the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the winter months, otherwise known as Samhain.
Mm.
Are you familiar with this topic?
I am in an interesting way. So first off, I've got touchstones in the Outlander series.
Okay.
Then there is a book. I can't remember what, but I'm frantically okay. So there is a bookshelf, and it may not even be in this room where I met the author when I was living in Japan, and he wrote a book, fantasy book about
Okay.
a girl who goes into another realm, and there are lots of Samhain touchstones.
Okay.
So
So cool.
yeah.
So one of the things that I learned in specifically in reference to this, among many other things, is that Samhain, like its sister festivals, they kind of, I don't want to say the lore changes from clan to clan, but each clan has its own oral history. So there might be different understandings on a really small level.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
think that's really, really compelling. I spent a lot of time like, okay, wait, how does this work? How does this work? And then realizing that I'm going to get a lot of different answers along the same vein. And I was really intrigued by that. Additionally, and one of my favorite things about mythology as a whole is the commonality among stories globally, and this is no different than that. Um, Participants, for example, in Samhain, they believe that the time of year it's celebrated is a time when the veil between worlds is thin, and as such, it's time to be aware of the extra spirits and react accordingly. That's a pretty common thought among a lot of belief systems, and I just think that's really, really interesting. So that's where I spent a bulk of time on YouTube, and let me tell you, there's some stuff.
You've seen some things.
I have seen some things. Yes, I have. It has its origins in ancient Ireland and it spread throughout the communities of Europe, Ireland, Wales, Britain, and Scotland. It's safe to say there is some contention stating that its origins were actually started in Scotland, but the general acceptance among all of the sources that I have located do suggest Ireland as its sort of its birthplace, its emergence, if you will. However, if there's someone out there that can point me to direct ancient manuscript that tells me for certain, I'm here for that too. Either way, it's widespread all amongst the Celtic community, right? So a good swath of Western Europe has some relation to this. It's one of the four fire festivals throughout the calendar. This calendar, are you familiar with the Gaelic calendar, which is
No, but I will
fascinating?
say that I picked up that there is a original fire festival. That was my takeaway because I know the
Yes.
fire festival as that failed thing where everybody got stranded, which this doesn't sound like that.
No, this is very different than that. So basically this calendar works, it's like a quarter calendar, right? And among other events, among other holidays and festivals, if you will, there are the four fire festivals that mark different transitions of the year. So Samhain happens to be the one that ushers in the dark season, marking the end of one year and the beginning of the next. And what I find really, really compelling about that is the ancient Celts believed, and it makes so much sense to me, but they believe that we're everything is born in darkness. So that's why the festival starts at dusk, because that's the beginning of the day. That's the beginning of their new year. And I was
Oh.
like, "Oh, okay. I didn't fully have a real grasp on this. That's a really fascinating outlook." And then later in my notes, I came across this video of a young lady who shared her experience attending a Samhain festival in Ireland. And at this festival, they have a moment where the participants are speaking to what I would assume to be the equivalent of like their priestess.
Mm-hmm.
And she's kind of giving them instruction on what's happening next. And what they're going to do next is say aloud within the community their dearly departed from the year, from the prior 12 months. And
So
then,
they're
go
reading
ahead.
the death scroll, but from the entire
Basically,
year.
basically, and the way that I heard it, because she's filming this, it's like you're not standing there reciting off, 25 people or 10 people or 3 people. You're reciting off like those that were the most grievance for you, like those that left you with such a hole in your heart, which I thought was really, really interesting. And then they turn to the west and they sing a song ushering the departed into the other world. And I thought the idea of West was a really interesting throwback to Tolkien, which is a funny thing to say, I know, but it kind of made me think like, why did that matter to Tolkien? Like, was he very aware of these festivals and what that meant? And
Oh,
so I
he
kind
had to
of,
be.
right? Like I really wanted to have a conversation with him in that moment. So I was kind of just milling about my notes out loud, and I had mentioned it to my husband, and he looked at me with just this like, I can't believe you didn't think of it face and said, "Well, babe, the sun sets in the west, the beginning of darkness." And I was like, how did I not like that's probably the exact correlation. And for them, that's how we're born into darkness. Like, how did I miss that? So I was like, wow, that's really fascinating. All that. Like I said, most of the celebrations they start at dusk on the 31st of October. One source said they can last up to 3 days. The general gist is it's the full 24 hours from October 31 to dusk of November 1, but this is Ireland and there is feasting and there is drinking, so it could be 3 or 4 days. No one's really arguing about the time frame here.
Mm.
In fact, early writings suggest that Samhain is a mandatory celebration that lasts a minimum of 3 days and 3 nights. These celebrations, they're attended by the entire community, and they're expected to present themselves to local kings or the local chieftains. There's a belief that failure to participate would result in punishment from the gods. Think like sickness or even to go so far as death. I'm not
So
sure.
it's
Yeah,
mandatory fun,
mandatory. You have to go and you have
and
to
you're
have a good
gonna
time,
like
dang
it.
it. Nope, stop. You're gonna like it. And now I wonder why I'm superstitious, right? Like this is this is the spirituality of my own ancestors. And okay, yeah, I'll participate and like it, dang it. Now, I know that I said earlier this festival is of Celtic origin, but worldhistory.org suggests that the event predates the arrival of them in Ireland over 2,500 years ago.
Okay.
So, a really fascinating thing I learned while researching this is unlike most mythologies, unlike most cultural origin stories. Ireland doesn't have quote unquote an origin story, but what it does have is an invasion story. There were at
So
least
no one was there, but they all invaded?
someone was there, but as people come and they get added to the story, they get added to an invasion. There were at least five before the Celts arrived. Um, is the general understanding. And I find that really interesting in that most origin stories start with like, and then we showed up. There was no one here. Here we are. Ta-da. Right? But in this case, it was we were always here, but more have come.
Oh.
And that's fascinating. Yeah. Um, Now I'm gonna add to this a suggestion and a thought that the Druids had been around ancient European world for most of human history, most definitely all of its written history. So it would be fair to say that they have a part to play in the creation of these festivals and these mythological belief systems of there being five invasions because they were kind of there to see it, and their oral tradition would kind of back that up. But to be honest, for me, the Druids had such an air of mystery and the supernatural anyway that it would be really easy for me to find any kind of tangible link to to those stories all melding together underneath a umbrella of Druid,
Right.
right? Um, so now that the basic bookwork's out of the way, let's go for some fun stuff. Worldhistory.org has a really great understanding of the spiritual veil of the time. I'm going to sum it up. Basically, Samhain is considered a favorable time for the Druids to practice their divination, given access to this that the spirit world was stronger. So, honest to God, I know this is terrible, but my first thought was Professor Trelawney from Harry Potter could have probably used the Samhain night. I'm just
I
saying.
mean, you're not wrong at all.
Like I could not get her out of my mind, and it made me chuckle quite a lot. Um, but because of this sort of lifting of the veil between worlds, it's also, while giving access to the Druids to practice their work, it's also giving access to the physical world from the spiritual other world. So for the ancient Celts, their physical world and the spiritual other world, they exist side by side as opposed to separated by a great distance. I think like the Norse tree of life or
Mhm.
our contemporary scientific multiverse idea, right? That's exactly how there were
Did you just refer to the multiverse
relating
as
to the
scientific?
both scientific and superhero. I might have missed to say superhero, but there is a lot of belief in the community now that we live in a multiverse. So here we are. Thanks, Marvel. You gave us some weird science that now physicists are trying to debunk. I have been reading about it left and right for months. Um, Now, as such, during Samhain, the two realms could converge, and passage between the two worlds for any brave soul was a lot easier. So it's easy to say that you're going to experience both the generous and kind spirits as well as
Malevolent?
malevolent,
Malevolent?
malevolent, malevolent. That's a word I can say really, really well, but
And we hit
I put
record
an
and your
N at the
tongue just
beginning.
goes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
malevolent and grumpy ones, they have access and they can pass through. And because of the thinning of the veil, they have more powerful agency and pull on the world of the humans. So there's this could be problematic, as you can imagine. But a lot of their mythological stories take place around Samhain. Like a little bit of background on their spirituality. They work in a world of liminality, otherwise known as quote unquote the in between. And that's like a center point of their belief system. So these areas of in between are like transitional space, like a doorway or a shoreline, or times like dawn and dusk, a place that would mark like change and transition, right? So the there's so many like heroic stories that take place in their mythology because of this.
Okay.
We meet a lot of really fascinating characters if you had the time to go back and like read them. Samhain has a lot, and it's pretty fun. But it doesn't just mark the time between the two seasons, it's also a representation of a transitional period. Therefore, according to the Celts, it exists without time. And as such, it, quote, belongs to neither summer nor winter. And it's thought to be a time of peace not bound by human rules or the physical world. So human quarrels don't really matter, but humans do take this time of gathering because, right, they're all having to meet and gather with the local chieftains and the local kings. They take this time to settle bigger business issues, and try more intense crimes, or they would inaugurate a new king, make the
Wait,
repayment
did you
of
say try
debts.
bigger crimes? Did you just try to slide that in there?
They would this would be where you would throw a trial for like something outside of pickpocketing,
Oh, okay.
right?
So
Like
trials as opposed to like, okay, we have to go get drunk and then we have to go steal the biggest amount of gems we can. We got to rob all the banks. We got
no,
to Doris
I'm
Payne
sorry.
this bitch. Look,
Listen,
I don't create the
Doris is
rules.
here.
It's Samhain.
No,
We've been
we're
told
doing the thing.
this is the edict. We can't
You know
postpone this
what?
to next week.
Okay, because here's the thing though, you're not wrong, right? Because if you're getting help from the other world, you might as well give it a go.
With my luck, the spirit that decides to join me is the bumbling idiot that falls over the klaxon, that wears pots and pans and jingle bells as they fall downstairs trying to tiptoe.
And therein your quarry is going to hear you coming like
Right.
no tomorrow.
And they have like a handful of my ID cards that they just toss into the wind.
Yeah, okay, so that's not what I meant, but we'll run with it. I love it. Um, it must be said that anyone who uses a weapon or commits crime during Samhain is going to be faced with certain death. So while it is considered a time of peace, it is considered a time of organized peace. Let's not ruin the fun for everybody with that, you know?
Hmm.
So here's the day itself. In Ireland, the ancients would celebrate the Samhain Fire Festival at the Hill of Ward, also known, and I had such a hard time with this word, so just please forgive me, world. Talagtica. Um,
Nailed it.
this is
I don't know it's wrong.
Thank you. It's named for a powerful druidess. She died after giving birth to triplets. This hill is located in County Meath in Ireland, and the it's just kind of fascinating. Like that's kind of where the big to do is at. But they have these festivals everywhere, but that's where you go for the big one. As I noted earlier, the events would start at dusk on the evening of October 31st. All the harvest would have been brought in and the animals sheltered for the coming months by this time. So while the harvest is being brought in, the families would actually let their home fires burn out. Animals would be picked for sacrifice, and the druids would then light a big communal bonfire or bonfire using a wheel that would cause friction and spark flames. This wheel is supposed to be a representation of the sun, and it's used along with prayers in hopes that it would please the gods and help the regrowth process. What we know today as a bonfire comes from this. The original was bonfire, and I think that's pretty cool.
Oh.
Um, Kind of macabre, if you will. Now that the big bonfire is lit and you've had your feasting, you've done your fun for the evening, whatever, you're gonna go home, but you're gonna take a little bit of the flame from the communal bonfire back to your home to relight your hearth.
I
And I
like
think that's
that.
so um that speaks so much to community already, right? Like the whole community is gathering from this event, but then at the same time, you take that event home with you. And I think that to me, that showed that like people were far better linked to one another, that that was an important thing that they would do. I already mentioned there's all kinds of feasting. We've got food, we've got booze, we've got it all. We're having all the fun. But now we've also got some mythical creatures. So the Morgaine, she's associated
Mm-hmm.
with Samhain, as well as the Tuatha Dé Danann and the Daga. They all play one part or another within the pantheon of gods. Offerings would be prepared and left outside the village or fields just for the fairies or the Sidhe. Um, it was also thought that ancestors, this just kind of cracked me up a little bit. It was also thought that ancestors might cross over during this time, so they would dress up as animals and monsters so the fairies would not be tempted to kidnap them. I'm not sure
That's
if
the
that,
origins of trick-or-treating.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if the dressing up of yourself to stop the fairies kidnapping was meant to protect you or to protect your ancestors. I'm a little unclear on that,
I
but
think it's
my
you.
understanding is it's you, right? That would make the most sense. One of the really fun things about this night is it has a similar aspect to it as Dia de las Muertas, where you're preparing a meal to share with your ancestors. And so you would invite them to share this meal, and then say the mom and dad or the older members of the family would converse with the ancestors and tell them all the recent gossip since their passing. Meanwhile, children are expected to entertain the dead and like play games
How?
with them. I have no clue.
Go play Yahtzee with Grandma, honey.
Exactly. I drew you a picture. Like that was exactly my thought,
Could
and
you
it kind
imagine
of
little
added.
Kyrie talking to an empty chair?
Could you like my first thought was this is where plays at home came from. Like we have to entertain the dead, so we wrote a play and we all have costumes. Um, but there you go. There's also a shape-shifting monster called a puka who would receive their harvest offerings from the field. There's the Lady Gwen. She's a headless woman dressed in white. She might be inclined to chase night wanderers around with her little black pig in tow.
I want a little black pig that follows me around.
I know, right? There's the Dullahan, whose very sight was a death omen. They sometimes appeared as impish creatures and other times as headless horsemen riding flamed-eyed horses.
Totally chill.
Um, I know, right? There's a fairy host or slough. They might hunt on Samhain and then kidnap people. Additionally, this host, if you will, they come from the west to enter houses and steal souls. Just for a little fun. Now, according to the mythicalencyclopedia.com, this is basically this host is basically a group of restless ghosts. They reside in both Ireland and Scotland, and according to their mythology, they're basically rejected by the gods and Earth itself. So they're believed to be the souls of the dead who aren't allowed to enter into peace. They're
Oh,
often seen as sinners who were not fit to enter heaven or hell. So we have that. Now fast forward a little bit. Bonfire, we're now in the Middle Ages. Bonfires are known as Samhainagans, and I'm gonna say that I know it's wrong. I cannot get it right. Samghnaghans.
okay.
Samhainagans? Yeah. So this is basically a more personal bonfire closer to the home or the farm, and this becomes a tradition. The idea is that it protects the family from fairies and witches. In Wales, men would just go ahead and toss burning wood at each other, making some pretty violent games, and then they'd set off fireworks.
I expect nothing less from the group that brings around a horse skull to your front door for Christmas and makes you battle rap for the alcohol in your own home.
No, I'm here for it, weirdos. Um, this is about the time where the dinner with the gossip and the children entertaining the dead. This also comes about that time. And this part just doesn't make sense to me, but they would also that night of Samhain, they would leave their doors and windows open for the dead to come in and eat the cakes that they had left out for them.
Well,
This
yeah,
honestly seems
you,
so counterproductive.
but see, they're your ancestors, some of them.
That's the sum of them part that I'm like, okay, I get inviting your ancestors back, but like, what's to stop a fairy that wants to steal your soul?
The
I'm a
tiger
little
costume.
confused on that. I guess, yeah. Now, as we have said 100 times before, history doesn't happen in a vacuum, and the Christians show up. And
And they ruin
as
everything.
as Christianity is gaining traction within these pagan communities, church leaders do what they do, and they reframe Samhain as a Christian celebration. The first attempt was in the 5th century by Pope Boniface. He moves the celebration to May 13 and specifies it as a day celebrating saints and martyrs. However, the fire festivals existing in both October and November, they don't end with the decree. So, like, I guess he tried, but it didn't work out so great for him. In the 9th century, Pope Gregory moves the celebration back, but he then declares it All Saints' Day on November 1. All Souls Day would follow on November 2. And I was like, could we not just like what did we have to get involved?
Yeah, we had
Like
to meddle. We had to meddle. Our fingers were itching. We had to do it, Angie.
it's what we're so good at. But these new holidays, they didn't go away and they didn't end with the pagan aspects of the idea. So like they didn't do a great job
But they
trying to
tried.
reframe, but they did try. October 31st then becomes known as All Hallows Eve or Halloween, and much of the practices, they're kind of being contained within that, and it works. But then in the 19th century, they're adopted by Americans through the Irish immigrants who brought their traditions with them. So now we have trick or treating. We have the Irish custom called mumming, where you would put on your costumes and go door to door and you would sing songs to the dead. You'd be given a cake as payment
From the dead,
from the living at the house. Although
but you're
that
singing
would be
to the
really
dead.
interesting. Yeah.
Do they have dead people at the house? What is the connect? Like,
I think the idea is that we're singing for your dead. Like,
oh,
should your ancestors still be roaming, milling about, if you will, snacking on their cake?
okay.
We'd like to sing them a song, and can we also have a piece of cake? Jack-o'-lanterns,
Weren't
they
they originally turnips? Did they
they
originally
were,
carve
and
turnips? Yes.
I have
And
a
those are
little
the
blurb here.
creepiest looking little jack-o'-lanterns is a freaking turnip.
They're so creepy, and if you want to look, you can go. The Museum of Ireland has a I don't think it's made of wax. I can't remember what the material is, but they have like a molding of one, and it is just the creepiest little thing. He's kind of cute. I want one. Um, anyway, the this idea comes from the story of Stingy Jack, who in the 1600s is portrayed as an ominous character who was believed to have tricked the devil from for his own monetary gain. And because of this, he gets banned from heaven and from hell. Like they both agree he can't come in. So, Stingy Jack, he's forced to roam the earth for eternity. And given that a proper metal lantern would be kind of costly, people would carve faces into produce, like turnips. In some cases, it might be a potato or a radish or a beet to kind of ward off that we don't want any Stingy Jack about. We don't want any malevolent fairies about. So we're just going to put our little candle in our creepily carved turnip
And you
and
think
call it
about it.
good.
You don't get a big old turnip, so you're working with a real small area.
It looks like a little shrunken head almost, a bald
Yeah,
shrunken head.
right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the number of
Um,
stabbed hands as you're trying to gouge out the inside.
mhm. Yeah.
You can tell
Thankfully,
I've
we've
thought
moved on to
about this.
pumpkins.
Yeah, no, every time I
Yeah.
carve a pumpkin, I think this could have been a turnip.
It could have been, and I might just try it this year because I'm real curious to see how wonky I can make one. Um, these would be left outside the home with their little candle light in them, or they would carry them along to protect themselves from harm. But at the end of the day, this is how we get our Halloween. So there's the story of Samhain in the most basic, nutshelly. There's so much more I could tell you about. That's how we got Halloween,
I
and
love
I'm
it.
thankful.
I love it.
Candy. Although I'm gonna say if my neighbors don't start handing out cake this year, I'm gonna be real upset.
You need to let them know that you're going to show up to sing for their dead and you're expecting a hostess snack pack.
Thank you so much. The ones with the little white line on the top. Thank you.
Hmm hmm Okay. Well,
That's it.
I have a story for you, and I got to be
Okay.
honest, this was one of the ones I was shocked that was not on your list that you have told your husband that you are doing. It doesn't mean it's
Okay.
not on your list. It just means it's not one you've been vocal about.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you the story of Sarah Winchester and the Winchester Mystery House.
Yeah, I am actually shocked that's not on my list either.
I mean, I was just like, here I am, sharp shooting stories from your backyard.
Truly. Way to
Hmm
go.
I know. So I had to get to it before it climbed to the top of your to-do list, got to your to-done list, and then I had problems with next week.
Yeah, you win.
So
I
my
would have
story,
loved to seen how we'd have steered me away from that. I'm just gonna say.
right? It'd be like, actually, why don't you look at this headless haunting?
Turnip.
Yeah.
Turnip.
Have you thought of the malevolent turnip? All right, so my sources, I've got one from I went to biography.com, University of Wyoming, because nothing says anything in this story like the University of Wyoming. They have an article, Haunted by the Past, the real story of Sarah Winchester by Ashley Lebinsky. And then the podcast Morbid, love them. They have an episode, The Winchester Mystery House, separating fact from fiction. And I will say, I am bummed that it doesn't exist anymore. But when COVID happened and we were all under that initial thought process that this is only going to be 2 weeks of lockdown, we're only going to be in our
Mm-hmm.
home for 2 weeks. So many tourist places launched virtual tours.
Mm-hmm.
We did the virtual tour of the Paris catacombs. We did the virtual tour of the Sarah Winchester's Mystery House. I'm about to tell you about. We did so many of them, and you could just do these tours virtually. It was fantastic. It was amazing. Loved all of it. Um, the virtual tour, I think it still exists, but I think it's like a now a $9 charge. At the time, it
Oh.
was a thing. I don't remember if we paid. I don't think we did, but it was neat. I liked it. We did it as a family. It was really cool. But I'm going to start with a quote. Start from a quote from a person named Merle H. Gray. Perhaps not more than a dozen people in California know that Mrs. Winchester is a musician with a genius for composition, that she is a remarkable businesswoman, that she is a French scholar, that her philanthropies alone would make her a national figure if they were known, that she is a full-fledged architect familiar with building peculiarities of all countries.
And all we know about her is that she had seances and was so afraid of the repercussion of her husband's actions that she built us a house with endless rooms.
Yeah.
I'm mad. I'm mad right now.
Oh, oh, wait. Just take your ire, give it a seatbelt,
Okay,
okay?
buckled
Because
in.
it's going to have if you're having some angst right now, you're going to need a strap down because
The
Sarah
handle my
Lockwood
business.
Party was born in 1839. Some say 1840. Sources are a little sketch. But she was born in New Haven, Connecticut, to Sarah Burns and Leonard Party. Her grandma was also Sarah, too. So you remember
Of
how
course.
when we talked about Marie Laveau, everybody's name was Marie?
Mm-hmm.
In this story, everybody's name is Sarah. Sarah,
This checks.
went by Sally, but in history
You
we
have to be a
recorded
little
her as
different.
Sarah.
Okay.
Yeah, I look, I'm not the one who named her, who gave her the nickname. I'm just here telling you the story.
Yeah.
But I'm going to call her Sarah because that's what all the sources say. And normally I like when I talked about Wilhelm Seneca of the chief of the Powhatan tribes, I made sure to use his name and not call him Chief Powhatan. It feels awkward to do it here, but I'm just going to call her Sarah.
Okay.
Now, her father managed the city bathing house until he found success as a finishing carpenter, and he was building carriages, like in doing this in the
Okay.
backyard. And this provided financial security for the family. He also ran a very progressive household. He basically was holding court with prominent abolitionists and free thinkers of the day. And this is
Ooh.
the home he's raising his house or his family in. And influenced by this environment, Sarah developed into an incredible student. She learned 5 languages: English, Latin, Spanish, Italian, and French. She demonstrated
Okay.
proficiency in musical composition, math, and science. Now, did I mention that this is the 1800s?
I am go on.
Hmm. Hmm. She grew to a whopping height of 4'10"
That a girl.
and weighed 95 pounds.
Okay.
So she little itty bitty girl. She
The one you don't
also,
want to mess with.
I mean, I don't know if I got that in, it's not like she packed a hell of a right hook, but I will say she was nicknamed the Belle of New Haven because she was one of the beauties of the region.
Okay.
So she's a thinker, she's beautiful, and she fits in your pocket.
I'll have all this for us.
Uh-huh. Now, she ends up living very close to the Winchester family, and they have, a bunch of kids, and some of them are boys, and she ends up getting kind of match made with
As will happen.
Mhm, mhm, with William Winchester. And she'd known him since childhood, and the family kind of arranged the marriage. And it seems as if their marriage, even though while arranged, was one that she greatly derived a lot of pleasure and comfort from.
Okay.
Now, her father-in-law, Oliver, he was co-owner of the Winchester Davies shirt factory.
Okay.
And that was a thing I wasn't seeing coming. Like there was something about the way these shirts laid. There was something like maybe they had a patent on a seam of a men's shirt, which seems like a weird thing. But either way, William's being groomed to take over the company. And
Okay.
Oliver, at some point, develops an interest in firearms and firearm businesses. And he takes control of the Volcanic Arms Company and then establishes the Winchester Repeating Arms Company.
Okay.
Now, the Winchester Repeating Arms is maybe one you've heard of. And he does this in 1866. And William soon sold his interest in the shirt company and became the secretary of Winston Repeating Arm or Winchester Repeating Arms. The family business grows incredibly successful. They make the Winchester model 1875 or 1873 rifle and this gun is known as the gun that won the Rust.
Mm-hmm.
They end up selling more than 700,000 rifles that year from that year to 1916. Um, and owners of this gun include Buffalo Bill Cody, Annie Oakley, and President Theodore Roosevelt.
I'm not surprised.
I mean, completely. So business is going great. Everybody wants this gun because it can fire so much faster than what was currently on the market. Now, June 1866, Sarah Winchester gives birth to a daughter, Annie. And unfortunately, the baby's unable to process calories and dies of malnutrition 6 weeks later.
Mm,
And that sounds awful. Like that is the failure to
yeah.
thrive.
Yeah, that's devastating.
They have no more children.
Oh, okay. I thought they had a son. Okay.
Nope. Um, March of 1881, William, the husband, also dies. He ends up having a really long battle with tuberculosis. So Sarah inherits a 50% stake in the company and $20 million dollars
In
in
1880?
1881 money.
Oh, okay.
Now, I had to dig and find maybe less than reputable inflation calculators
Okay.
because the ones that come up on the top of Google go back to 1913.
Right.
So when you need to get back an additional 30 odd years, you got to kind of go to page two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, any guesses on what the less than reputable 20 million could be?
200 million?
616,745,098.04. Over $500 million.
Oh,
Oh, and by the way, that 50% in the stake in the company, that keeps money coming in.
of course. Yeah, so she has more money than she knows what to do with.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Now, she endowed what would become the Winchester Chest Clinic in New Haven at Yale Hospital, and then moves to California to start anew with family members.
Okay.
I will say before I didn't put this in my notes, and that was on me. Um, Before William died, she was living with her in-laws, Oliver Winchester and her mother-in-law, and they were all living together. It sounded like a very lovely situation, and they decided they were going to build a home, bigger home for all of them to live in. And she took over like as foreman or whomever the right title would be,
Okay.
to oversee the building of this home, and it would overlook the factory because when you want a
Okay.
big palatial palace, you want it in the most idyllic place. So what says peace and relaxation, like overlooking a factory that makes
Yeah, why
guns,
not?
that
Yeah,
shoot
let's do
faster
that.
than the average. Like this sounds perfect, but they
Yeah,
didn't end
that's
up
where I'm
living
gonna
there
build
very
my
long.
palace.
Right. Because by this point, her babies died, her sister passed away, her father-in-law dies, and then 3 months later or so, hubby dies.
Good grief.
So
Okay.
she's going through it. Like she's in black.
She is celebrating Samhain.
Yeah, she is living in black dresses at this point. Now, she's widowed, obviously, and wealthy beyond measure, and she decides to travel around the world, and she spends like 3 years bumming around Europe.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that.
I mean, look, maybe the answer to my problem isn't in the south of France, but we should look there first,
We should definitely try. I agree with you wholly.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She ends up settling in California, and the rest of her family ends up joining her 1884. Now, she buys this little two-story farmhouse. It's got 8 rooms, and it's on a 40-acre
Okay.
plot of land in San Jose. And while we know it as the Winchester Mystery House, she named it. I'm trying to figure out how to say this and not butcher it too foully. Yanata Villa. Because
Okay.
it okay, and she named it that because it reminded her of a place that she visited with her husband when they were in Europe.
Okay.
And so at that point, she's starting to really kind of get things going, get building going so that she can, build this home where she can be comfortable. 1888, her favorite niece, Marion Daisy Merriman, moves in and lives with her. And she lives with her for 15 years until she gets married. So over the next
Okay.
20 years, Sarah Winchester spends about $5 million and turns this quaint little 8-room cottage. It's hard to say that 8 rooms is quaint, but she turns it into a 160 room mansion covering 24,000 square feet.
Bigger than a Costco.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Now, construction begins not long after this, um, and it converts this quaint little farmhouse into a 7-story Victorian mansion. And I
Indeed.
every time I hear that, I go, no, it's not. And I go and I look at a photo and I count the windows from the ground floor up, and I go, okay.
Yes, it is. So as it turns out.
Uh-huh. During construction, there's rumors that start flying because everyone's obsessed with the wealthy widow who is a quote obsessed with building a house. And there's rumors that she's doing it at the behest of ghosts.
Hmm.
In 1895, the San Francisco Chronicle runs an article about the odd construction of the house and its mysterious owner because she's kind of a recluse. She's not here to impress you. She's here because she just wants something to do. And she's got more money than
Hmm.
sense, so mind your business.
Go about your day.
So from there, the legend was, if not born, it's given legs and it starts growing. And there's so much speculation as to why this rumor started or got spread, and historians believe that it's largely in part due to the Great Depression that happened in you know this 1893. So my thoughts were the Great Depression was a little bit later, but maybe the Great Depression happens later and they point back and they're saying this, they villainized her then. Anyhow, she turns into an easy villain
Okay.
because she has immense wealth and she's just throwing money at construction projects, right? Because
But she's paying people to work.
right now, late 1800s, $5 million was 185 million.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's spread out over 20 years, but my mortgage isn't going to cost 185 million when I'm honest, when I'm done paying it off.
Yeah.
So,
Even with inflation.
no, yeah, thankfully.
Hmm.
But anyhow, she's turned into this villain because people are struggling to keep their homes and they're just looking for a scapegoat. And then
That's
we
funny. I've
have,
never seen her as a villain. I've always seen her as like my heart breaks for her.
because you just assume that she's doing it to try to keep ahead of the ghost. Because, like, it's around this time that there is, I think, partly in this article, as they're talking about it. So there's talk in articles, or if you take the tour, apparently, the tour guides will tell you that before she left for California, she meets with supernatural. Is a seance? What is the person? A psychic? And they say
Yeah.
that she's being pursued and haunted by the people who were murdered by the guns of her husband's company. And the only way she's going to get free is to move out west and start building. And that the day she stops building, she dies. And so, according to this, like she's going to build night and day, 24 hours a day, and never stop. And
Yeah,
then
see,
there's,
that's the part that always made me heartbroken for her. Like
right?
she loses the thing that is the things that are the most important thing in a happy life.
Hmm.
And then for whatever reason, a spiritualist tells her that's how she has to live out the rest of her life.
You know,
So I always got the like she's not having any she's never finding peace.
hmm hmm and you think about the
Yeah.
times you've done construction work on the house or renovations or just repainted a room. And it's just like, I can't. Retiling the kitchen, I can't go in the kitchen for 24 hours. We're going to die.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
going to die. I'm not making it through this.
Yeah, I cannot deal with this.
And it's not the end of the world, but to have construction workers in your home 24/7, if the rumors are true, they're not, then that's awful.
Yeah.
So then, as time goes and we're getting the myth building on itself, there's others who say that the shift in gun culture really also plays into the mythology that builds around this woman. But meanwhile, Sarah's just being Sarah and she's incredible. It was common for racism to be more rampant or more accepted, but she's letting like all the nationalities into her home. Her head gardener is a Japanese American man named Tommy Nishihara, and Japanese people were extremely villainized during this time.
Mm-hmm.
She builds such a strong man, or such a strong man. She builds such a strong bond with this man that his granddaughter's middle name is Winchester,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which is not something, you would think of. She's building homes on her land for workers and their families so that they wouldn't have to travel long distances to be away from their family.
That is the type of boss you want to have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let me take care of you.
Yep. And she didn't build 24/7 nonstop. There's actually like reports saying that she was paying up to 3 times the standard wage on a job because she wanted to just like, look, I'm not going to take this money with me.
Yeah, what am I gonna do with it?
Right. Like, and if
Yeah.
you're getting paid 3 times your normal rate, and she says, oh, well, we rebuilt the house and now there's a skylight in the floor. We'll just put a railing around it and keep going. You know what?
Okay.
You do you, boo. This check cashes just fine. I'll keep spending your money.
You want a window for nothing? Let's do it. I'm
Yeah,
here
you want
for
me
it.
to block off this hallway with just a wall? Fabulous.
Oh, you know what? You didn't like that kitchen there? That's cool. We can move
Which is
it.
we'll put another one there. What do
Yeah.
you need? It's up to you. Now, the expansion of the home slows because San Francisco has this earthquake in 1906 and it topples.
You might have heard of it.
Yeah. But it really topples this one of the 7-story towers and the upper floors of the mansion. Now, she was in a lower level room called the Daisy Room. And the Daisy Room was untouched, but she was barricaded in by the debris. And so
Oh,
people
wow.
had to
Okay.
like kind of get her out. But she ends up deciding that she doesn't want to invest more emotionally into the rooms that were destroyed. So she just walls them off and like tells the workers to just go around it, block them off.
Do what you gotta do.
Yeah, like those rooms are dead to me. Build new ones,
That didn't work the first time. Let's keep going.
right? And then she ends up getting another home nearby in Atherton, and she spends her final 2 decades there. So part of the Winchester Mystery House was kind of left in a little bit of disrepair. Now, she ends up dying of congestive heart failure on September 5th, 1922. And the already famous home was sold and reopened soon afterwards as a roadside attraction because there's doors that like open to the great outside that would leave you with
Hmm.
a 3-story drop. There's, a skylight in the floor. There's cabinets that open to reveal a suite of 30 rooms. There's like crazy winding hallways. Like this thing
Right.
is insane. Now, it's it is what it is. And part of it is because of just she was just building to build and having fun and not caring about a master plan. But of course, now others are like, well, she would have a seance in the seance room. And then she would confer with the ghosts, be like, are you sure this is what should I build the rooms going to the left, to the right? Should they go east?
Right.
So this is part of that mythology. Now,
She just
I'm,
sounds like the type of lady that instead of cutting her hair, did a home project.
yeah.
Yeah.
And she's
I'm
just
here for
having
it.
fun, like, what does she care?
Yeah, I got more money I know what to do with, and I'm
Hmm.
and I'm providing for other families.
Yeah. Like, what, you don't like eating? Go work somewhere else. Go work for less money at a place that has a blueprint. Have fun.
Yeah, do your thing. Hmm.
So, this Queen Anne Revival Victorian mansion has home features and this obviously very elaborate interior layout that seems as if it was designed to confuse the visitors. There's stairways that end at ceilings. There are some stairways with the stairs just inches apart. There's doors that open into walls. There's big rooms that contain smaller rooms. I would assume those are closets. There's
I was
What?
just imagining a square and a square, like a
Ah,
smaller square inside a bigger square, but closets probably makes more sense.
I mean, that's how it seems to me, but it could just, I don't know necessarily what they were trying to intend when they wrote that. And that maybe
Okay.
they're thinking of a very specific room that has like
Okay.
a doll room inside. I don't know. Um, there's also like ghosts, apparently. There is the spirit of the former caretaker named Clyde, who seems to be roaming the halls, that people on tours claim to see this mustachioed gentleman doing things like cleaning the fireplace in period correct clothing. Now, adding to this supernatural appear are stories that the former owner, who supposedly believed that the untimely deaths of husband, daughter were killed as some kind of, cosmic payback for all the people killed by these rifles, she, as the legend goes, told by spirits, build this house, keep building. So, second you stop building, you die. And had a seance room. Now, there's no actual real seance room from people who knew her that said that they're like, no, the hogwash. It was created by the guys who bought it. Now,
Yeah,
there
I
is
didn't
a
realize. I
go
thought
ahead.
she just held seances in whatever room she was told to hold the seance in. I didn't realize that there was like a specifically dedicated space for that.
Yeah, I mean, and when I did the online tour, now this was years ago, there was a seance room,
But it
but
could just be a sitting room, right? Like,
I think it was put in, it wasn't stock,
okay,
and it was done post mortem to really bolster the claims.
okay, that makes sense.
In fact, there's a woman named Mary Jo Ignofo, and she publishes what's believed to be the first full-length biography of Sarah Winchester, and it's titled blah, Captive of the Labyrinth, Sarah L. Winchester.
Malevolent.
Honestly, I'm here for you. I just want to show you're not alone. There's
Thank you.
others who can't speak as well. The book kind of really attacks and goes after a lot of these myths and misconceptions, including that she was influenced by a medium to build this breakneck speed to appease the angry ghosts. Now, one of the things that this woman, says is, we know there were breaks. We know that she took time off, that she would travel and she would just tell people to go home. And that there were
Yeah, I
times
mean,
where
you're
she,
being paid triple the amount. You can take a day off every now
yeah,
and
you
then.
you you get some PTO. Or, I've got a headache, go home.
Yeah.
Now, they did say, and I think I said this before, but with the 1906 quake, that she just gave up on certain parts of the house and just walled them off and just said, that's it. Now, that would lead to a lot of very interesting quirks in the house, as you would understand. There's also a section called the Deathly Doorway that was a construction entrance for workers that they had to create a pulley system to take materials to a higher floor. And so
Okay.
as the house is fully built and like, finished, that becomes something else. And so you're like, oh, that's why there's a stair or a door that just leads to insta death.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And it was just like, well, just shut the door and just don't open the door. I mean, how many of us are like, you don't want to see the check engine light? You just put a post-it note over it.
I was just thinking,
Go
stick a
about your
post-it
way.
note on the door.
Right. Don't
Okay.
open or
Yep.
do.
Live your life. I'm not here to tell you how to
Yeah.
do it.
There's also like no evidence that the workers thought she was nuts because again, she didn't have a seance room. She's not communicating with the dead at all hours of night, and she's paying them triple the rate and just going, all right, well, just build around the skylight, I guess.
I bet you, like, I don't know much about her story as a whole. Like, obviously, the lore that kind of goes with it, I know a little bit of it, but not a ton. But I bet you, given what you said about her earlier and the type of student she was, and the curiosity and the exploration of the world that she did, I bet you she was just trying architectural technique. Like, wonder what happens if we do dot dot dot. Like,
Yeah.
I've got more money than I know what to do with. I want an archway there. How do we get it? Like, what do we do? You know?
And she's not building. Well, I think when we build our homes or do renovations, we're thinking, how will this affect the resale?
Yeah. And
You
she's
know?
not having to worry about that.
No. She's like, look, I don't even have heirs that I'm going to pass this on to.
I'm just gonna have fun. Yeah, I'm
If
gonna
I
have a
want to put a
closet right here. Let's do it.
I'm going to put a bathtub in the dining room, we're putting a bathtub in the dining room.
Stop me.
Right. Like, you don't like it, don't come to dinner.
Duh. I will
Right?
bathe and eat. Thank you so much.
Ah, could you imagine? Anyhow,
It'd be heavenly.
there's no bathtub in the dining room. I was pontificating. Speaking from the heart, if I win millions, there will be some unhinged.
I am here for this. I will buy your entire caftan closet.
Mm.
I'm here for it.
Did
Mm-hmm.
you see how high my eyebrow just arched? I am here for all of this.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Now, there's no denying the house is crazy. It's got some weird, peculiar little bits, but some of them, like the stairs that are very low, only inches apart from step to step, they could have been made to accommodate Sarah's arthritis. And in
oh,
fact, in a writing to his wife, Thomas Bennett, who ran the Winchester house for the rest of its existence, Sarah herself acknowledged, quote, "For one reason or another, since I started to make alterations in my house, I have not been able to get anything like settled. In the first place, it's infinitely more difficult to get work done than it would be in New Haven. I'm constantly trying to make up an upheaval for some reason." So it's more that she's indecisive and less that she's being pursued by evil spirits.
I mean, she's a woman. It takes me 3 outfit changes to decide on what I like. I don't blame her.
And for us, it's like, no, no, move that bookshelf over here. Move that wall over. You know what? The room's cold, put a fireplace in.
As a matter of fact, let's just scratch this. Let's add a tower over here. The sun's better
Yeah.
here.
And so that's how she's working through everything. So the house ends up being really ahead of its time. It's got early gas lights, indoor plumbing, faucet showers, and it had wool insulation, which I didn't know
Interesting.
was a thing, but apparently that was cutting edge. She also did a ton of Tiffany stained glass throughout the property. And so she really like had a lot of fun with this home. There was like even over 100 windows, stained glass windows that were never installed. Like she did them
Oh,
just
wow.
for the
I did not know
giggles.
that.
And I don't know if
I
that meant like
love
she
that.
planned on like changing them out or if she planned on like adding new rooms, that would someday incorporate all of them. But
Could
she
you
liked what she
imagine?
liked.
Could you imagine having so much money that you can change your stained glass out with the decor of the season? Okay, put in the Halloween ones.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as November 1 hits, we switch everything out and it goes
Mm-hmm.
Christmas. Actually, Hubs would make me wait till day after Thanksgiving, but this is not about him. Um, Now, she also included something that was super neat. She put in a communication system that allowed for people to speak to one another in any room. She called it the Annunciator. She also developed, this
Oh
was
my gosh.
nuts. She put in a drainage system for the greenhouse within the building that basically took all of the gray water from the laundry and soap trays and washboards. And then that ended up going through and watering the plants. This was before they were having all of this
Massive
fun.
water issues.
Yeah, before like being green was a thing. She was well ahead of her time. Now, during her life, she opened up her gardens to for community events and hosted plays in her grand ballroom,
I didn't know that. That's cool.
right? So she's a recluse, but she's like, you know what? Use the property. I'm not going to be in that ballroom. Have at it.
I have 6 more. It's
Yeah.
fine.
It's funny you say that because the room has asterisk 160 rooms, 2,000 doors, 10,000 windows, 47 stairways, 47 fireplaces, 13 bathrooms, and 6 kitchens.
Honestly, that doesn't feel like enough bathrooms.
Truth. And it should be noted, there's no evidence she had a seance room at all.
I love that. I just love the idea of her being this grand, rich lady having fun with with this house.
Yeah.
Like that's actually so much more appealing to me than the idea of some paranormal aspect of it. Like I'm just trying stuff out.
Hmm.
Let's put a window there.
Now, you know how I said asterisk 160 rooms?
Hmm.
We're not quite 100% sure it's just 160.
We're still looking.
I mean, there's a wall there, but are there doors? Are there rooms? Did we, like,
Have we already
did,
seen this room and not known it?
did our chalk X wear off on this door, or we just have we been here or not? Um, now, so I think that that's all really lovely and amazing. She did own other properties in California. She owned a houseboat, and then in 1910, she did buy that home in Atherton to be closer to family. Now, when she died in 1922 money, she gave 1.3 million to the tuberculosis center in Connecticut to honor her husband, which I spoke about earlier. And that remains open to this day.
Oh wow, that's cool.
And before her death, the rumors of her quote torture soul, those continued to compound and get more and more insane.
Of
That caused
course.
her to retreat into herself, become more and more reclusive. And her family did everything they could to refute the claims, including an article from Merle Gray, who highlighted her achievements and dismissed the cruel accusations with a quote I had earlier. However, all of that's way too late. The legend has already taken hold.
Right, the roots are there.
Yep. And none of that could be drowned out. After her death, the house was bought by John and Mamie Brown, and they're known for their background in roller coaster design and amusement parks. And for a
That was
brief
not on
moment,
my bingo card.
no, no, they wanted to put a roller coaster on the property.
I'm so glad they didn't.
Same. And they kind of hit a big problem because they acquired the house and then they ended up like opening it for public tours, and it'd been like that for 100 years. And they couldn't put a roller coaster on because everybody threw an absolute conniption fit
Good.
because the neighbors didn't want it. Everyone was like, you can't do that to this house because they love this house. This house has like a cult following, much in the same way the Queen Anne does, or the Queen
Mm-hmm.
Mary.
Yeah.
Um, And now, like, if you're looking at a top 10 haunted locations bit or watching a show on the History Channel of the top 10 paranormal places, you're going to see this house. It's going to be listed. And they're going to list all of the reasons that it's there that I've told you shouldn't put it there.
Of
These are
course.
things. There was even in 2018 a horror movie starring Helen Mirren about this house.
Hmm. I didn't know that.
At one point, the Winchester Mystery House hosted an event titled Unhinged.
Ha! That's
I
awesome.
I mean, I had to put that note in here, but it was basically like just all of the crazy things that happened in the house about the house. And of course, most of them are not real. But the site does celebrate Sarah's brilliance and kindness on his tours, but the house won't shake off the ghosts of its past, both real and imagined. And it's those ghosts that tend to overshadow the real woman. And I have the only known portrait in existence of Sarah Winchester. Would you like to see it?
Yes, because I have an opinion of what I think she looks like, and I want to be so wrong.
She looks just like it.
Okay, that's exactly what I imagined.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, she's okay, so obviously it's a black and white. Um, she is sitting, some sort of
it looks like
not
a
a wicker chair, but
carriage to me, like a horse carriage.
yeah, okay. I can't see the very bottom of the picture, so I couldn't quite tell,
Oh,
but
here, let me.
yeah, definitely a horse. Oh yeah, definitely horse carriage. She's got I would think there's some foliage behind her, so I'm gonna say her hair is piled on top of her head. She has the
Hmm.
little hat, the cape with the high collar. The cape looks like some sort of Damascus, like it's very textured, it's beautiful. She has a
It's like an
sly
opera
grin, like
cloak.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. She has a grin like she knows something you don't know, and I absolutely love that about people in especially old photographs, and I'm here for it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, yeah. She's very cute, and she is all of 4'11".
Yeah, little tiny thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the story of I will say, infamous Sarah Winchester.
I love that so much more than the myth of the Winchester house.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, we've driven by it so many times in our travels to San Jose, and it always has this like I don't want to say like you can see it coming, but like once you're there, you know you're there, and it has this just air of grandeur with it. And yeah, I can see why.
Yeah. And I think I haven't stopped when we've driven by for the same reasons that I think I didn't really appreciate her story. I didn't want to go to like a haunted house that seemed trumped
Yeah,
up and to see the tortured soul, but to know that it's just someone's creativity. It is a house that was a sketch pad.
truly. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that feels exciting and cool to me. And I think I would enjoy a home where you could just see creativity and imagination flourish.
I agree. I wholly agree with you. Let's just put a fence around it.
Yeah. Like w- we all want, we all want, I don't care who you are, we all want a bookshelf that you pull open and it's a hidden room.
hmm
We all
And
want
a
that.
library with a rolling ladder.
Yes,
Yeah, see, she's just living our rich girl dreams. That's what's happening.
that's it. That's truly it.
Yeah,
And I'm not going to hate on it
yeah.
because she's
Mm-mm.
just actualizing my life that I want to have.
I'm here for it. Thank you. That story made my whole day.
You're welcome.
Whoa.
So if you're like, okay, we've had the history of Halloween, we've had haunted places, maybe. And you're thinking, what in the world are they going to do? How are they going to top this? Oh, I've got a zinger. I have got a creepy, 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 creepy one that I have not done yet. It is in my back pocket. I am gathering sources as we speak. You're thinking, what does that even mean? You should rate us. You should review us
Mm,
because this is a free podcast. And you should
and we
help other
like that.
people enjoy what you've enjoyed.
Inflicted upon them, if you will.
Mhm. And share this with your favorite head gardener that you know
hmm
is going to name their grandchild after you.
Yep. Everybody has one. You know you do.
Yep. And on that note,
hmm
goodbye.
Bye-bye.